Sometimes you need encouragement, not action. The internet has made it seem as though after a period of consistent action, you would attain success, which is not the case, and your life is an attestation to that fact. Some of you have given it your all. You've done every single thing you know to do. You've gotten up early in the morning only to go back late at night, and yet the result isn't forthcoming. Tonight's discourse is an attempt to explain your current circumstance and how to circumvent it. Let me share a story of a man who was saddled with the responsibility of pushing a rock up the mountain. After days of trying, the rock wouldn't budge. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, months into years, years into decades. And after a decade of trying, he decided to give up. But he noticed something very strange. About to leave the place, his legs had become thicker, his arms become stronger, his biceps wider, his bones were now susceptible to pressure. What's the moral of the story? The moral is, and if you're intelligent, you would have already been able to identify it. The lesson, sometimes the outcome isn't the goal. The lesson is. If that man in question decides to venture into any combat sports, within weeks, he will be ready to knock out the champion, because he doesn't need to learn the fundamentals like discipline, going to the gym, or how to withstand pressure during adversity. He's done all of that. And after a week of grooming of the basics of fighting, he knocks out the champion. And people would attempt to create a theory based off of that result. Oh, he landed a lucky punch. A lucky punch. There is no such thing as a lucky punch. Imagine someone training every single time. He has given his life to this craft, to beating people up, and you say he landed a lucky punch. It's asinine. It doesn't exist. So anytime you see an uncommon result, especially attained within a short time, the question is not to point fingers or to come up with different assumptions. Is to ask this question, which I'm about to share. What did you do previously? There's something called hire purchase, a prevalent business model, especially here in Africa. So what this basically means, a driver enters into contracts with the owner of the vehicle. I would remit X amounts every week, every month, depending on how the agreement is structured. And after a stipulated time, it's either you give me the vehicle or I have saved enough money to get mine. That's the definition. There was this guy, let's call him Tom. Tom found himself in a very difficult phase in life. He decided to enter into one of these agreements. Few years later, Tom got his own vehicle, and while he was driving, he narrated his story. He said, while others would receive their check, they would blow it up on something stupid, either women, alcohol, or night out, but Tom would keep his own check, saving it, piling it up, stacking it up, till he was able to afford his own vehicle. Now, where did this wisdom come from? Tom shared, I had a struggling business. I was trying to make it work as hard as possible, yet it failed. So it's based off of those experiences that enabled me to sustain the wisdom in order to navigate this route. So sometimes it's not necessarily the outcome, but the lessons learned on the journey which would make you monumentally competent and able to attack a more audacious goal. Similarly, there is a story of individuals carrying a cross to an unknown destination. Suddenly, this guy falls face flat on the ground in tears. God, please reduce my cross. It's too big. Please, God, reduce my cross. Reduce my cross. Strangely, God accepted his request. Thank you. Taking on the small cross that was very tiny, more like a chaplet. And after days of trudging upward, they got to a gap rather, and every single person used their cross as a bridge. When he stood before that gap with his tiny cross, it couldn't fit. It was too small. He fell down on his face, began sobbing, weeping. God help me, God help me. And strangely, God reached out and handed him the initial size of the cross, so he was able to pass. The point I'm trying to put across is that every single thing that is currently happening is supposed to happen. In fact, it's the lessons that qualifies you in order to receive the blessings you desire. We see this in the life of E.T., who, the motivational speaker, once upon a time in his life, he wanted to commit suicide in an abandoned building. Once upon a time in his life, he couldn't read and write. Yet, it's that pain story that the nation celebrates him for. Never in a million years would he have thought, experiencing those negative circumstances, that one day this would be the story he would tell. Or David Goggins, there's nothing fun about running miles, even days on end. Most recently, President Trump. In fact, I would argue that it's the failed assassination attempt that swung the pendulum to his favor. Had they not failed, or had they not tried to pull off the assassination, which revealed the whole propaganda and the scheme and what they're trying to do, I think a lady would have been running the United States right now. And we all know how that would have ended. So every single thing you are experiencing, you are supposed to experience. Is this negatives that makes you to become the kind of person that can handle that result you desire. You see, years ago, I couldn't pay my rent. So something happened, I can't recall, but I lost all the money. Confronted with the landlord, he said, if you don't pay me my money, I'll do XYZ, I'll evict you, I'll throw all your things out. And I've never felt so much anxiety in my life. Yet, praying to God, looking for help, yet it's that difficulty that has become a story now. Now, I can go on hours and hours on end on how that scenario matured me as an individual. It's the confidence derived from that painful activity that has been translated into business, maturing this individual, you see. So whenever I experience a negative activity or something that I interpret as suboptimal, I simply say, this is the requirement for the results I so desire. So if there's anything you've learned, the first one is sometimes the outcome isn't the goal. The lesson is. Number two, whatever experience you're currently going through is necessary to qualify you for the desired results. What is how did this get in here? My apologies. And as always, my friends, I'm rooting for you. It's a pleasure speaking to you. Before we get back, let me say, I believe every single one of you is going to be successful. The fact that you're watching me is an indicator that you will be successful. And as always, my friends, it's a pleasure speaking to you. I'll see you in the next one.